As Chloe nervously stepped into the luxurious mansion, her heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe. The marble floors sparkled beneath her feet. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and expensive paintings decorated every wall. She looked around in disbelief. How could the address that old homeless man gave me lead to a place like this? She whispered to herself. Before she could gather her thoughts, footsteps echoed from the grand staircase. She slowly raised her head. Her eyes widened. Coming down the staircase was the same old homeless man she had been feeding outside the mall for weeks. But this time, he wasn't wearing torn clothes. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, worth thousands of dollars. Walking beside him was a graceful, elegant woman, and beside them was a tall, handsome young man whose confident smile made him look like a movie star. Chloe's legs almost gave way. She blinked several times, wondering if she was dreaming. The old man smiled warmly and said, "Welcome, Chloe. I've been waiting for you." Who was this man? Why had he lied about being homeless? And why had he invited an ordinary janitor into a billionaire's mansion? Before I tell you what happened, let me take you back to where it all began. The story begins. Chloe Brooks was only 23 years old. Every morning before sunrise, while most people were still asleep, she was already getting ready for work. She wasn't a manager. She wasn't a businesswoman. She wasn't rich. She was simply a janitor at one of the biggest and most luxurious shopping malls in the city. The mall was always crowded. Luxury stores filled every corner. People walked around carrying expensive shopping bags. Fancy cars filled the parking lot every day. To many people, Chloe was invisible. Customers passed her without saying hello. Some workers treated her as though she didn't exist. Others believed cleaners were people who had failed in life. But Chloe never allowed anyone's attitude to change her heart. She greeted everyone with a smile, whether they smiled back or ignored her completely. She treated every person with respect. Her kindness came from the difficult life she had lived. When Chloe was only 16 years old, she lost both of her parents in a terrible accident. Overnight, she became the only family her younger brother had left. She gave up her dream of attending university and accepted any job she could find just to keep food on the table. Life wasn't easy. Some months, she barely had enough money to pay rent. Sometimes she skipped meals so her younger brother could eat. Yet no matter how hard life became, she never complained. She believed that one day, God would reward her patience. Little did she know, that day was much closer than she imagined. Every morning before starting work, Chloe would stop at a small bakery just outside the mall. Not because she could afford breakfast every day, but because she loved the smell of fresh bread. Sometimes she would buy a loaf to share with her brother after work. Other days, she simply smiled at the baker and continued walking. She counted every dollar carefully. Every penny mattered. As she walked toward the mall one Monday morning, something caught her attention. An elderly man sat quietly near the entrance. His clothes were old and worn out. His beard was long and untidy. His shoes looked as if they had been repaired countless times. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't begging loudly. He simply sat there holding a small cardboard sign that read, "Hungry. Food, please." People walked past him without looking. Some frowned. Others shook their heads. A few even laughed. Chloe slowed her steps. She looked at the old man for a moment. Then she smiled gently. "Good morning, sir." The old man slowly looked up. For a second, surprise filled his tired eyes. Almost nobody greeted him anymore. He smiled back. "Good morning, my dear." Chloe wished him a good day before walking into the mall. It seemed like such a small moment, but neither of them knew. That simple greeting was the beginning of a story that would change both of their lives forever. The next morning, Chloe arrived at the mall as usual. Before she even clocked in for work, she looked toward the entrance. The old homeless man was there again. He sat quietly in the same corner, with his cardboard sign resting beside him. As soon as he saw Chloe, a gentle smile appeared on his face. "Good morning, young lady." Chloe smiled back. "Good morning, sir. How are you today?" "I'm still alive," the old man replied with a soft laugh. "I'm glad to hear that," Chloe answered before heading inside. She had no idea that someone was secretly watching the conversation. One of the saleswomen rolled her eyes. Why do you even waste your time talking to that old beggar? She asked. Another employee laughed. Maybe she's planning to marry him. The two women burst into laughter. Chloe simply smiled and continued walking. She had learned long ago that arguing with people who lacked compassion would never change their hearts. Days turned into weeks. Every morning, Chloe greeted the old man before starting work. Sometimes she bought him a bottle of water. Other times she shared a sandwich or fruit from her lunch. Whenever she had a little extra money, she bought him fresh bread from the bakery across the street. The old man never asked for anything. Whenever Chloe offered him food, he always thanked her politely. One afternoon he looked at her and asked, "My dear, why are you always so kind to me?" Chloe smiled. "My parents taught me that today you may help someone, and tomorrow you may be the one needing help." The old man stared at her for a moment. There was something different about this young woman. She wasn't pretending. She expected nothing in return. Unfortunately, not everyone shared Chloe's heart. The mall security guards treated the old man like a nuisance. Every afternoon they forced him to leave the entrance. Some customers even complained whenever they saw him sitting nearby. One day, a wealthy shopper threw a few coins at his feet and said, "Go buy yourself some dignity." The people nearby laughed. The old man quietly picked up the coins, without saying a word. Chloe witnessed everything. Her heart broke. She walked over, picked up the coins from his hands, and placed them back into the rich man's palm. Then she quietly handed the old man a warm meal she had just bought. Without raising her voice, she simply said, "Everyone deserves respect." The rich man looked embarrassed as several shoppers stared at him. A few days later, dark clouds gathered over the city. Within minutes, heavy rain poured from the sky. People rushed inside the mall to avoid getting wet. Outside, the old man sat alone in the freezing rain. His clothes were completely soaked. His hands trembled from the cold. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he slowly walked inside the mall, hoping only to warm himself for a few minutes. The moment the security guards saw him, they rushed toward him. "Get out. You'll scare the customers." "This isn't shelter." The old man quietly turned to leave. Just then, Chloe stepped between him and the guards. "Please," she said calmly. "He's freezing." One of the guards frowned. "If you care so much, take him somewhere else." Chloe looked into her wallet. She had only enough money left for her own dinner. Without hesitation, she walked to the bakery. A few minutes later, she returned carrying fresh bread and a large cup of hot coffee. She handed them to the old man. His eyes filled with tears. "You've already done too much for me," he whispered. Chloe smiled. No one should go hungry, especially on a day like this. The old man slowly accepted the food. He looked at Chloe for several seconds before reaching into the pocket of his old coat. He pulled out a small white card. On it was nothing but an address. He handed it to Chloe. "My dear," he said quietly, "if you trust me, please come to this address this Saturday morning." Chloe looked down at the card. There was no name, no explanation, just a house number and a street. She looked back up. "What is this place?" The old man only smiled. "You'll understand when you get there." Before Chloe could ask another question, he stood up, thanked her once again, and slowly disappeared into the rain. Chloe remained standing there, staring at the mysterious card in her hand. She had no idea that accepting this invitation was about to change her life forever. Chloe couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious card. Every night before going to bed, she took it out of her bag and stared at it. What if it's a trap, she wondered. But what if something is wrong with the old man? Saturday finally arrived. After praying that morning, Chloe put on her nicest dress and took a taxi to the address. As the taxi entered one of the city's wealthiest neighborhoods, she became nervous. The houses grew bigger. The streets became quieter. Luxury cars lined the driveways. Finally, the taxi stopped in front of an enormous black gate. Chloe looked at the address again. It matched perfectly. "There must be a mistake," she whispered. She slowly walked to the gate. Before she could knock, it opened automatically. A well-dressed security guard smiled politely. "Good morning, Miss Chloe." She froze. "You know my name." "Yes, ma'am. We've been expecting you. Please come in." Completely confused, Chloe followed him. The mansion was breathtaking. Beautiful gardens surrounded a magnificent fountain. Luxury cars filled the garage. Everything looked like something from a movie. The security guard led her into a grand living room. "Please have a seat. Mr. Langston will be with you shortly." Mr. Langston? Who was that? Before Chloe could think any further, she heard footsteps. She looked toward the staircase. Slowly, an elderly man began walking down. Chloe immediately stood up. Her heart almost stopped. It was the homeless man. But he no longer wore torn clothes. Instead, he was dressed in a perfectly tailored navy blue suit. His shoes shined brilliantly. His gray hair was neatly styled. Beside him walked an elegant woman, wearing a beautiful dress. Next to them was a tall, handsome young man in his early 30s. The old man smiled warmly. "Welcome, Chloe." Chloe could barely speak. "Sir, is this really you?" He nodded. "Yes. I don't understand." The old man invited her to sit down. "My real name is Victor Langston. I'm the owner of Langston Group, including the shopping mall where you work." Chloe covered her mouth in shock. "You own the mall?" Victor nodded. "For months, I disguised myself as a homeless man. I wasn't looking for people who respected money. I was looking for people who respected humanity." He continued. "Almost everyone ignored me. Some insulted me. Others treated me as though I wasn't even human." Then he smiled. "But every single morning, one young woman greeted me with a smile." "You," Victor introduced the elegant woman. "This is my wife, Margaret." Then he turned toward the handsome young man. "And this is my son, Ethan." Ethan smiled warmly and shook Chloe's hand. "It is a pleasure to finally meet you." Victor continued. "I've always prayed that one day my son would marry a woman with a beautiful heart instead of someone interested only in wealth. When I met you, I knew I had finally found someone truly special." Chloe was overwhelmed. She never imagined that buying bread for a stranger would lead her here. Over the next several weeks, Victor invited Chloe to family dinners. She and Ethan spent time getting to know each other. They visited parks, museums, and charity events. Their friendship slowly grew into genuine love. Months later, Ethan proposed. With tears of joy, Chloe accepted. Their beautiful wedding became one of the biggest events in the city. But Victor wasn't finished. A few days after the wedding, he invited Chloe and Ethan to visit the shopping mall. This time, Victor arrived in a long line of luxury vehicles. The mall manager and every employee stood outside to welcome the billionaire owner. The moment Victor stepped out of the car, the employees gasped. One whispered, "Isn't that the homeless man?" Another covered her mouth in disbelief. "It can't be." Victor walked confidently into the mall with Chloe and Ethan beside him. The same employees who had laughed at him couldn't even look him in the eyes. Victor requested all employees gather in the main hall. He calmly explained everything. He revealed that he had spent months disguised as a homeless man. He also announced that every interaction had been recorded through the mall security cameras. After reviewing the footage, employees who had repeatedly mocked, humiliated, or abused vulnerable people were dismissed. Those who had shown kindness and professionalism were rewarded. Finally, Victor placed his hand on Chloe's shoulder. He smiled proudly. "This young woman reminded me that kindness still exists. Today, she is not only part of my family. She is also joining our company's leadership to help build a culture of compassion and respect." The entire mall erupted into applause. The same people who once overlooked the janitor now stood to honor her. Chloe looked around with tears in her eyes. She remembered the rainy afternoon when she spent her last few dollars on bread and coffee for a hungry stranger. She had expected nothing in return. Yet that one act of kindness had changed her life forever. Moral of the story: never judge people by their appearance. The person the world ignores today may be the one who changes your life tomorrow. And remember, a small act of kindness can open doors that money never could. Thanks for watching. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another inspiring story. Share this video with your family and friends, because one act of kindness can inspire another. See you in the next heartwarming story.